everybody. Hey, it's Karen with Creative Visions TV, and welcome back to this channel if you're a current subscriber, and welcome to the new viewers. You guys, I have in store really some interesting people. In fact, I have 3 guests coming on this show today. You know, I love channeling, and I often talk about the spirit guides I channel, just known as quite simply the guides, who are these divine beings from source wisdom, and they come forth. And I love their messages, and I love sharing them here with you guys because it's a way to feel empowered and learn to know more about ourselves and express our greatness within the world. They have such great information to bring forth. So I enjoy talking to other people too who also channel, because what I find is when you do this work, you really begin to experience unconditional love. You express that joy, and you can't help but share it with others in the world. So welcome to the channel, and today let me tell you a little bit more about our 3 guests. So the duo of the trio is actually a husband and wife team. They come to us from Utah, and they're very interesting people because, let me tell you this, they had a really traditional, more business work background. You know, the husband, he was a construction worker and had a construction company. The woman, the wife, she was an award-winning stylist and hairdresser. I mean, they had pretty traditional work ethics and businesses they ran, but they weren't so into the spiritual at that point. I mean, expressing that in their business at least. But then something interesting happened. They came together because of a car accident, a terrible car accident that put somebody in a coma. Then they had near-death experiences. And all this brought them together to the third part of their trio, which is this energy, an ascended master, if you will, a divine being who came forth to bring humanity messages of awakening, of empowerment. Very similar. And I get chills just talking about this because when you hear truth, you begin to know it yourself. When you hear it, you know it, you feel it. And so I met these people because of a friend of ours who was also on the show before, Lori Spagna. And I actually had an opportunity to hear the channeling wisdom come forth at Conscious Life Expo a couple weekends ago. And I was thrilled. They decided to be a guest on the show and come to you today. So I want you guys to meet them. So without further ado, let me bring them on and let us welcome Brad and Kasey Wallis and Julius. Welcome, welcome. Thank you both, or all 3 of you, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Karen, so much for having us. We always love these interactions, and you gotta love technology nowadays, right? This is just like sitting down, having our little virtual cup of coffee, with you and your audience, and welcoming everybody in. Thanks so much.
Well, you're welcome. It definitely is like that. I mean, you guys, we're doing this through Skype, and of course, I'm in Southern California. They are in Utah, as I mentioned, and technology is fantastic, and really. With you have the internet speeds that we have today, you can do these interviews without many glitches, actually. So it's fun. It's great.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Tell us more about the path that led you to each other and to your third friend in spirit.
Well, because of a car accident, which I had suffered a brain injury.
Wait. We got back up just a tiny bit. Brad and I didn't really know. We have to start off right because Brad and I did not know each other, okay?
That's right.
My oldest daughter went to work for Brad as his personal assistant with his construction company. So I had cut Brad's hair like one time, okay? That was all the association that we had. And it was about 6 months into Kimberly working for him that he was involved in a massive car accident, okay? And that's now where you can jump in. He loves to just kind of jump into this nebulous space, and everybody's like, wait,
back up. Yeah.
How did this work? Yeah.
Because you have to back up because this will lead to a beautiful love story.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So thank you, Kasey, for sharing that.
Yeah, that's the female part of all of this, isn't it?
It is the gooey part.
Anyway, yes, I had a construction company, very successful construction company. And I was sitting at the busiest intersection and the busiest weekend in the community that we live in. And kid ran a red light and pushed 3 cars right through the intersection, and my vehicle was the vehicle that stopped everybody, split my truck up, and I suffered a massive brain injury. Now, there's a lot more to that story, but when they got me to the hospital, over a period of time, they couldn't shut my brain down. And so I would go.
I'm going to pause you right there. So Kimberly calls me at this is the good stuff, right? This is the good stuff, okay?
Yes.
Kimberly calls me at the salon. She's like, my God, Brad's been involved in this horrible car accident. I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I mean, poor Brad. Okay. She's like, Mom, we got to go to the hospital. We got to see him. I'm like, I'm not going to see Brad. Like, I don't even know Brad that well, right? He was married to somebody else at that time. Anyway, I had a dream that night, Karen.
Oh.
That I was supposed to help Brad. Okay. I remember waking up in the morning going, what am I going to help Brad do? Right?
And now that is really interesting. I don't think I knew that part of your story.
Yeah.
So
there's little bits and pieces.
So Julius is already creating this feed storm, I'm sure, as we know, for many lifetimes. So I get this ping that I'm supposed to do something to help Brad. I'm like, whatever, right?
Yeah, you haven't got enough time for us to tell the whole story.
Yeah.
So.
No, trust me, you guys. There's a lot of detail to the story, but
Yeah.
Anyway, they gave me the medicine to shut my brain down.
Yeah.
And
with a brain injury, the brain, it runs like a hamster wheel. Okay.
Because it's trying to heal.
And it needs to rest.
Yeah.
To start the healing process. And unfortunately, your body gets this hamster wheel cycle going. Now, Brad's family that he had at the time abandoned him and tried to have him institutionalized so that the ex-wife could just take the insurance money. And my daughter, Kimberly, is at the office watching all of this take place over a period of time. So we're talking about a few months, and she's saying to me, Mom, they're plotting and planning against Brad. We have to help Brad. What are we going to do? And I'm like, what the hell am I supposed to? Right. So that's how Brad and I's connection started, was he outreach to Kimberly to help.
I honestly didn't know who I could trust.
Mm-hmm.
And because I live out of town, I live 38 miles up in the mountains, on a farm. And we have no convenience store. We have no utility. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere, so to speak. And so I've got a phone, and at least I was smart enough to be able to push my phone and try to make a phone call. And Kimberly's name was the name that came up. And
that's my daughter.
And so, Brad, this is when you were laying there after the car wreck?
No, this is after I get relegated to the farm. In other words,
after you get out of the hospital.
I can't do anything. That got me kind of locked in just here at the farm.
I see. Okay.
Because who's going to do anything? And they're cleaning house. They're selling everything. They're getting rid of everything. And I needed help because I was getting all of this information that things are just happening and what in the world's going on. And I hit the phone, and Kimberly's name came up, and she gave me to her mother, and I said, can you help me? I need some help. I don't know who I can trust, but I need some help. And that started everything that was going on. Now, in the meantime, because of all the legal issues that were going on between business and my family at that time trying to get me committed, I'm getting served papers every day here at the farm. I mean, it's every day. The sheriff was showing up to serve me papers. And when the doctor prescribed me this medicine to shut my brain down, I said, I'm done. Mm-hmm. And I swallowed the whole bottle. and drank a gallon of red wine.
Wow.
And I was finished. I was done with it. That I was going to end up with nothing anyway, so I thought. And so that was just the easiest way for me to get through all of this, I thought. And boom.
Yeah. So we dropped Brad off in the afternoon, and we were planning on seeing him the next day. We were taking him to his doctor's appointments and stuff. About 7 p.m. in my condominium, I was doing the dishes, and I looked at my daughter and I said, "Something's wrong with Brad. We have to go."
Oh, wow.
And I'm getting hit to go. And she's like, "What do you mean?" And it was winter time. Of course, I'm calling him. He's not picking up his phone. And we jump in the car and head to his house. And I'm driving as fast as I can. It's snowing. There's no lights on his property. We get onto his property, and we could not find Brad. There was a guest house he was supposed to be in. He wasn't in the guest house. The main house had been gutted to be refurbished before his accident and was just sitting empty and dormant.
It was just framed.
Yeah, it was just framed. Man. And we start crawling around on the ground trying to find Brad. At that time, we had those flip phones, the little flip phones, boop, boop, boop. And we're just flipping that open and shut, with a flashlight. Okay.
Oh, right. Before we had the flashlight apps, right.
And we found Brad. He had fallen in between two framed walls. He was unconscious and non-responsive. And so my daughter and I are trying to pull him out of this framed wall. Now, Brad's a big guy. You can't tell as much on the camera.
He's a big guy. I've met him.
Guy. And we're trying, he felt like he weighed 900 pounds of dead weight, trying to pull him out of that frame wall. So I started CPR on Brad. We called the emergency teams. And at this time, he's gone. He's having a near-death experience, okay?
Yeah. I'm watching all of this transpire.
Oh, wow.
And you know how people will tell you, if you've got a TV that has a picture-in-picture television, or a split screen, I'm sitting there watching what's going on and realizing that I'm not there, and then realizing I'm someplace else, and this just isn't supposed to be real. This isn't happening. And I felt a touch on my shoulder. And Julius came into my life. The first thing they asked me was, "Do you want to go back?" Apparently everybody's asked that question, and that's a whole nother situation in itself. But if you agree to come back, you come back to the body that you've just left, because your soul, there's still a fragment of your soul that's still in that suit, so to speak, that's sitting here. It hasn't left yet. And so I knew that by coming back here, I was coming back to my brain injury. I was coming back to everything that was going on. And I immediately started what I was very good at, and I thought I was negotiating. And I said, well, I'll go back, but you've got to come with me, because there's no way anybody's ever going to believe what I'm experiencing, because first off, I'm from Utah, and this goes totally contrary to everything that we're taught, and people just aren't going to believe me. They think I'm crazy enough as it is. They're just not going to believe this. So they told me, "Oh, don't worry, everything's already been taken care of." And, for 8 hours, we were in conversation. 8 hours in the human experience, we were in conversation. And I watched them load me in the ambulance and take me to the hospital. And
you were impressed on how efficient I was, weren't you?
Because you could see everything she was doing.
I mean, just throw that in there.
Yeah.
Like, I was doing CPR. I moved into emergency mode. I could have been an EMT in another lifetime.
Yeah, it was not a good situation. There's snow everywhere, no lights, it's wintertime. And so they put me in the hospital, and they got me just hooked up to all these gadgets trying to keep me alive. and I'm unresponsive.
Yeah, they told us at the hospital that he wasn't going to make it. Basically, the doctor told us we'd found the empty bottle of sleeping pills in the house. Of course, the police were here, and
they, of course, figured it suicide.
Well, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he was doing. So the doctor came out and told me that he was pretty sure he wasn't going to live, that 4 of the pills could kill somebody, and he'd taken the whole bottle. Of course, they pumped his stomach. He was under, all the hookups and stuff.
And I'm in suicide watch, so I'm in
right.
That little glass cube, and it played itself out absolutely perfectly. The doctor that was working on me was a very good friend of mine. And he basically told everybody to come in the room and say goodbye to me because they were ready to pull the plug and zip me up and be done with me. And
wow.
I shoot up out of bed and scare the hell out of everybody.
I bet you did.
And I started laughing, actually. And
well, he was kind of drunk. I mean, he drank, he'd had all that stuff in him. So he was kind of silly and goofy and drunk. I remember the doctor came out to get me, and the last thing I remember, Karen, was walking towards the room and kind of crossing over the threshold of the door, and then I was out. So that's when Julius started using my body to trans-channel to talk to Brad.
Now, you have never trans-channeled before that moment, is that correct?
Not that I'm really aware of,
okay.
Although I've had other people tell me they thought I'd done that, a little bit of that periodically here and there in my life, but not to this degree. So there's all forms of channeling, as you know, and there's what I call there's different percentages of conscious capacity to channeling. Mm-hmm. Some people can be pretty much fully awake, like Lori, gorgeous Lori, who's a wonderful friend. She can just sit there almost more like a medium where you're pulling information and you've got all of your facilities, awake. Then there's kind of these partial in and out. So I consider myself a trans channel. That means I'm out about 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
And Julius is actually using my facilities. They allow me to keep just enough safety for myself so I don't fall off a stage, or if I keep myself safe in any given situation. So this was the first time that I had really done this full trans channeling capacity where I didn't have any recollection of myself coming out of this conversation. And it was a bizarre phenomenon. It's like a Star Trek episode where you're suddenly, catapulted into another reality and everyone in the room knows what's going on and you don't. And that was our first experience.
So Brad just had this experience in his mind, in his awareness as he was out of his body, and then he comes back, and then you walk in the room and you just automatically start channeling Julius without even knowing who this person was.
Right. So, and of course, the agreement between Julius and Brad was they weren't going to let him let go of what had taken place. This was tangible. We're going to move this into your life. For the first year, Julius worked with Brad's brain.
They reprogrammed, what I say reprogrammed. Now, a lot of people take that, in different forms, but what they did was, because you only use a certain percentage of your brain, they bypassed the damaged area or maneuvered around, helped me to activate dormant parts of my brain and left the damaged part intact for it to heal on its own. And the doctors, the one doctor that I had that actually hooked me up to a monitor that was all colored, he was just absolutely amazed. He wanted to know how in the world, this happened. Where did this information come from? How did I learn to do this? And actually, because of that doctor's experience with what I taught him through Julius, he actually left his practice and went somewhere. He's somewhere in Arizona. I don't even know. I just heard that he went to Arizona and he went out working with brain injury patients in a totally different direction. So, the ramifications of all of this that has transpired through the years, and everyone who is actually affected by what happened to me, it's a much bigger, circle of people that got involved. And of course, you watch this at Conscious Life, but the hundreds of thousands of people that we've been able to visit with and talk with and teach them about the importance of what the human experience is really all about. That's what I came back to do, to teach humans what the human experience is all about. And the way this works is I'm the grounding conduit for Julius, because I don't have the I don't have the brain capacity to process the thought fast enough. So Kasey speaks through her and I ground them. And then if there's any information in there, because I'm hearing the conversation, and if there's any part of that conversation that is incorrect because of the human translation process, I immediately correct it so people understand what's going on. So it's kind of a different type of phenomenon that we have. It's
very fascinating. It's almost like you are a spirit whisperer. You're Julius Whisperer. That's what you are, really.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's interesting, Karen, because over the years, we've had only a couple of healers. Of course, there's something about Brad that healers are like, let me work on you. And I'm always laughing. I'm like, he's got this, kind of train wrecked body,
They get this look on their face like,
what is going on with your brain?
What is going on?
Yeah, we've had healers go immediately to his head without knowing anything about our story.
Isn't that interesting?
Talk about why is the energy moving from the back to the front on this one side instead of going through the center of your brain? We're like, oh, that's the bypass that joins.
Okay, so is it the right side of the head? Which side of the head is it? The right side where it's doing this?
So he was hit on both sides and front and back.
Okay. I got a bruise in the valley of your brain.
Yeah.
Human beings, you get thought on one side of your brain, and then you process it through the neural net, which is in the center, and process it over to the other side of your brain, and then it runs throughout your body. I had a bruise literally down the center of that neural net.
Okay.
It took years and years and years to heal because it's a bruise. And so I had a very slow time of processing. I could get thought in, but I couldn't process it through because it had to go through all that bruising. So what we did was they taught me how to bypass the bruise and work around it. And so now it's just a straight process of working around everything.
So Julius, when he says they, I think what he's meaning to everybody that's listening is Julius's group, the collective, right? Helped you circumnavigate, if you will, the cloacum up here to get through because you have your right and left hemisphere. So I'm assuming, Brad, the doctor probably did the scans on your brain. He probably saw the mapping change and the colors activated in different areas is what I'm going to assume happened.
Yes, absolutely. And at the time, this is 13 years ago, 13 years ago, even back then, even though that doesn't seem like it's been that long of a time, but 13 years ago, there was very little technology that was available to actually read the brain, where within a few short years after my accident, color technology came in, the fiber optic technology came in, that literally they could put the pinpoints on your brain.
Yes.
And it would light up in a 3D image through fiber optics. See, all of that came later. And my particular doctor, who I was blessed, given the opportunity to help him in his life, Julius instructed him on which avenue to pursue, to help people through brain injury. So
wow. So Julius comes through you, Kasey, and you're telling this doctor how to doctor.
So we got to back up just a little bit again, because you have to understand, in legal systems here in the U.S., if you're not married, the doctors won't talk to you. They won't bring you information. I mean, there's a whole legal braid in there. Okay. And so initially the doctors wouldn't talk to me at all because we weren't married. And he would go in for he had to have counseling sessions because anybody who has a brain injury, there's a lot of emotional problems there. And so that we can't say his name. He knew that Brad and I were living together because Brad had told him that. And he knew that there was something very interesting about our relationship. But one of the byproducts of having a brain injury is you hear voices and you see things that aren't there. And so Brad was really careful about not telling this doctor what was going on. The doctor kept saying, I want to know how this brain is getting reconfigured. Brad, can you tell me how to do that? And Brad would say things like, well, there's things that are going on, with my girlfriend Kasey. And so finally this doctor was like, I want to meet her. So I remember going in one time for a doctor's appointment and he's looking at me. And now this is an LDS doctor. Okay. I mean, bless his heart. There's no way this story's going to fly with him.
Very embedded in the religion of Utah.
And I think he wanted to see if I was crazy or if I was schizophrenic. And obviously he evaluated that I was not. That was nice. And Brad finally told him, do you really want to know what's going on?
I looked at him and I said, because you have to understand, my file was just huge of all the information that was going on. And of course, they give you this 20-page questionnaire. And about the fifth or sixth question, every 5 or 6 questions is, do you hear voices?
Okay.
And I never answered any of that stuff. And he knew that.
Okay. You
and
purposely left it out to not go into that.
Never answer. I answered all the other stuff to the best of my ability, but those were all left unanswered. And he just kept looking at me. And I said, in religion, in the religion that you're embedded in, I know that there are individuals in the religion that hear voices. Mm-hmm. They're allowed to hear voices. I says, the reason I know that is because I used to be involved in that religion. I was very much involved in that religion. I said, so if you want me to be honest and truthful with you, then you have to look at my situation just like I'm a member of the church or anybody else, because then I will be honest with you and forthcoming with you. And he basically took my file, closed my file, and set it on the side of his desk. And he just looked at me and he said, okay, you tell me what's going on. And I laid it out on the line to him. And he cried. He cried.
Wow. What a response.
It was amazing. It was an amazing response. In fact, I might cry too, but
it's okay.
I remember at one point when he told me that he was leaving the practice because of the information that he had been getting from Julius, he thanked me. He just looked at me and thanked me. And I told him then that this was our agreement. This is the agreement that we made. And I've come back to teach people what, the human experience is really all about. And of course, that next week he was gone. And of course, they couldn't give me any information about him. And there's no more information actually about him on the internet. He's just kind of vanished. But I do know he's working because I've run into a couple people through conversation that his name has come up where he's working independently and privately on people that have brain injuries. So.
Wow. Not only did Julius and your relationship with him when you were gone for those 8 hours, not only did it change the course of both of your lives, but look at how it's affected others. I know people that come to see you, they feel that way as well, of course. And then this doctor, that's pretty crazy that quickly people can change because of such revolutionary information that comes forth sometimes. Now, you guys, you've really shared a lot here. We've kind of have to unpack this a little bit more. So let's peel back some of the layers and let's talk about Julius. Who this about this Julius group? Tell us.
Yeah.
Well,
so
let me
Julius.
say something real quick.
Okay.
Sure.
Let me just say this real quick. We've recently just brought this information out to some people, and I don't know that a lot of people know it, but I'm more readily willing to talk to people about it, and that is that I was Julius's teacher in a previous life experience. I was their teacher, and so this is their way of evening. If there really is an evening of the score, that's so human to talk, to say it that way, but this is their way of leveling out that playing field where they get the opportunity now to teach me because of my accident.
Yeah, so, and what's interesting, Karen, is in that life, he died of a brain injury in that life.
Oh,
which so it gets really, really interesting.
I'm getting chills through my whole body. That's my way of saying that's truth. I feel the chills go through me when you say that.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
So, Julius, of course, the name Julius comes from the last name used by one of the energy personalities in the group, the dominant energy personality, which is Julius. Like you, when they were first talking to us, there wasn't a name. It was just this group. It was this group.
We called them the entities.
Yeah. Through the years.
Yeah. I think I heard you say that before.
Yeah. Through the years, we diluted it down, mostly because people were just demanding a name.
I know.
And so, Julius kind of coughed up and said, well, the best thing I can give you is the last incarnated name that I held. So it is a group, and this is how this works. And I know that you will fully understand this, okay? As we singularly dilute ourselves down into an embodiment as a soul, we live as human beings believing that we're separate. That's part of the challenge of us understanding that we're God, because we feel individualized, and no matter what religion you follow, you think that God is this massive source collective energy. We're taught that we are all one, okay? But somehow human beings don't really get that. They use that as a convenience periodically, but we still see ourselves as extremely separate. Well, Julius explains that that's a low level of conscious perception, that as we're working through our embodiments and feel ourselves individualized, forgetting that we are all human, we refer to ourselves individually, the I capacity. Once you reach a level of consciousness, which is what Julius describes as a sixth level of consciousness, commonly known as a Christ consciousness or a hyper-consciousness state, you return back to the full fractal facility that you are all of it, okay? So once a being has reached that form of consciousness, they will no longer individualize themselves. They will always refer to themselves as a we capacity, knowing we are all one. So Julius defines and displays themselves as the we collective, basically that we are all one. Mm-hmm. But for most people who witness me channeling Julius and witness this particular type of personality that comes out, they'll think of it more as a male individualized energy named Julius. And it really doesn't matter. It's really just whatever touches your heart or helps you assimilate the information in the finite mind that humans have for their benefit and for their growth. And so that's why Julius will refer to themselves mostly as we. But the name Julius would be a reference back to their last physical life capacity, which was about 1,500 years ago.
Wow. Okay. Now, so let me ask you about your collective. Do you have any beings in there that have never been in a physical form or physical body?
No, currently right now, from what Julius has described, there's 49 of them, and all of them have had human experience. Not only human experience, but all of them have had human experience. And so the cool thing about that is they know what it's like to have to work through all this muck that we do here and reach those higher echelons of consciousness to get off, to launch off. So where other entity sources will speak to us and through us in what I call kind of an ethereal dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
an ethereal capacity, an ethereal perspective, basically kind of just rooting us on from the observer effect, which is wonderful.
Right.
Believe me, not saying anything negative about that. That is an incredible experience. But Julius is the doer effect. Let's get you up. Let's get you doing this. This is how we do this. This is how we do
this. This is how we go through it. This is what you need to pay attention to. These are all of the things that you need to do in order to get through that, move on to the next thing, and continue on in your human experience.
Yeah, it's very applicable to our lives. The message that comes through, it reminds you of your divinity, as I mentioned earlier. But you can use it and apply it in your life right now, and there are great techniques to do that. So maybe you can peel back now another layer and talk about some of these themes or techniques they do talk about that help people in very practical ways.
Yeah. So because Julius they tell us that they've done everything wretched that any human has ever done.
Haven't we all?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
Whether you want to accept that.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that the transition between a low state of consciousness and high state of consciousness is judgment, letting go of judgment of all thought, but that humans have no idea how much they judge thought, and it's working your way through that state of awareness, becoming aware of where your perception lies, and then assisting everybody in shifting out. So, Master, everything that has become limited in your capacity of your reality that you have created is based upon your own limited perception of a thought that you are processing to demonstrate as a truth for yourself. That is what you are all doing. No two embodiments perceive thought the exact same way. It's not necessary. As God, we do not have to repeat ourselves in the knowing of ourselves in an exactified demonstration. Though humans think they do things the same, we would say a better word is similar. Similar. You are expanding the knowing of yourself through an infinite capacity in an ongoing state in the moment of now, in an abundance transformation that you cannot comprehend because you perceive yourselves as singular and you perceive your lives as a slow ongoing process of possible success. When you learn to open your minds and perceive far more thought, which is you, feel joyous about the knowing of yourself and demonstrate yourself through that capacity, your lives shift and change. So does your capacity for the processing is extraordinary. We are here to remind you, masters, of that which you are. Your capacity for imagining what you are right now is extremely limited, but that's okay. Because if we can spark an enthusiasm for a potential, we have opened up a gateway for you. And therefore, Master, it is our gateway for expansion as well. You believe that the pain and the suffering that you experience, that you have created for yourselves, is some form of a punishment done to you by an entity or energy source outside of yourselves. And the good news is it is not. That means, masters, that you can change everything through the knowing of yourself, and that seats you in full empowerment. We are here to remind you that you are the fully empowered beings, simply living in an amnesic state, perceiving themselves as less. But as each step awakens for you, joy is reached, and further knowing is.
Welcome, Julius. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
It is our honor, Master, as always, to have interaction with you, for we are not separate from you, nor anyone else. But to open up a conscious awareness state of our presence is quite the joy.
Thank you. And you know, I always hear from the guys that I speak with that it's the path to true love is through joy, and to true joy is through love, and that these two are interchange with each other, and that is truly what our mission is to be. What would you say to that?
Well, Master, we would fully support that, for both of those words are both a thought and a feeling. both a thought and a feeling. And we say that you are the capacity of both. For masters, our description is that in a word, God is all thought, for everything comes from a thought. It has been written that first came the word, but you cannot have a word without a thought. And in this essence of energy is the potential for thought to know itself, which means that it will expand itself. For when a thought knows itself, it moves and it demonstrates in a never-ending ongoing state of that constant changed perception of what it could be. In order for thought to do this, it felt its way down into a slowed down energy for itself, and light particles were launched. That's what your soul is. So, Master, you are both the thought that slowed itself down and expanded itself into a light particle or light being and became a soul. The soul is the emotional processor of that thought or the expander of that thought, and you are both. You are both. At best, humans have believed that perhaps they have a connection to this energy. We say you are an expansion of that energy. So, Master, as humans, you have a thought, then you have a feeling about that thought, and it moves. But in the descriptions of love and joy, those are both thoughts and emotions, are they not? So those are beautiful descriptions of all that you are.
And
Thank you.
I have to add to that, since we have talked a little bit about the human brain. It is the brain that is placed in the human embodiment to process. That's all the brain does, is the brain collects those thoughts and processes those thoughts and then lets the body experience everything that you think about.
Yeah. So your brain does not create thought, Master. It is just the receiver of thought. Then once the soul initiates an emotion, all of that is transferred through your physical embodiment as an electrical frequency. That's what your circulatory system is for. It sends that energy frequency into every subatomic particle of your body, and you literally become your thought. You are thought actualized. Then, of course, that becomes a projection out of your physical body, which then requests the demonstration of the knowing of self through the matrix or the hologram, and you bring forth to you an experience that demonstrates who you are. That's your life. That's your life. So everything that is limited in your life, Masters, is your own limited thought perception. That's great news, because if we can raise your capacity to know the expansiveness of the potential of all there is, your life will surely become that instantaneously.
Isn't that beautiful, you guys? So what I'm hearing Julius say to us is that we are all master creators. We are creatrixes and creators, and we're constantly creating through our I would call this my computer, my brain, my computer, right? That receives, and works like a computer, like your phone or like your computer you work on. But you are the one doing all the programming. You're the one doing all of the thinking. You're the one that's this other soul energy of yourself. I think that's very beautiful. Wow, there's so much more to say about this. Okay, let's do this. Let me ask a question of Julius, if I may, that would help people in this year. There's so much struggle going on, it seems like, around in the world, and then people don't want to get caught up in the drama, and there's a lot of drama. So what would you say to people to allow them to navigate through this emotional and literal unrest?
So, Masters, the first thing is an extremely challenging discipline for most. And that is to halt and calm and become clearly aware rather than knee-jerk react to what is going on. You have been programmed to react at this point. Everything is coming through your technology feed at such a rapid capacity that it is causing your brain to just knee-jerk react to everything flashed in front of it. Unfortunately, this is going on with the children through the programming that they're watching. Their brains do not even have the capacity to calmly evaluate, become aware, and respond from the soul. It's the altered ego that's just constantly being activated. but you can choose differently. This will go against the masses because the masses demand speed and performance from you.
You want it right now. You've got to have it right now.
But you will find that if you will close your eyes and know that for every thought that is going on, there is an option for that thought to be known through the eyes of love, and you choose to go in that direction, you will see things differently. You will feel things differently. You will demonstrate things differently. You will inspire things to be differently, and things become different. But we've got to get you aware of your soul's capacity for manifestation rather than the altered ego's ongoing state of limitation in manifestation. That's what these teachings will help you do. All masters are bringing forth suggestions on that through their perspective and their suggestions based on the way that they have done it. And we love and honor that truth. And right now, it feels so stressed, like you're driving a race car with the emergency brake on, right? And we've got to get you letting go of the emergency brake, slowing that vehicle down, which is your vehicle.
Getting back in control. Getting back in control of everything.
And come back to your own resolve. Your resolve is amazing. It is God. It is God. And everything is a choice. Even though we know that so many will argue that there is no choice for them, we will tell them that is a limited perception that you have accepted. What you cannot extract from any of you is your soul. That's great news. But most people don't even have it fully awake and understand what it is. But once you do, you will be empowered and all things will expand.
And not honoring your soul is where a lot of this confusion is coming from internally. Because your soul and your body is telling you one thing, and yet everything that's going on outside of you is telling you something totally different. So there's this constant struggle going on as to what's going on over here. Well, I don't feel that way. And what happens? What happens to human beings? You start deadening everything, whether it's through alcohol, whether it's through chemicals, drugs. You know, you've got a problem, so you go to reach for a pill. You go to a doctor to get a pill. Well, and they know that this is going on. And so we've got to get you to the point where you're recognizing that this is coming from your soul and that you're the one who's in charge of everything and not somebody else.
But here's the great news. So everybody has been talking for a couple of years about this wave of consciousness that is here and that shift is occurring.
Right.
We're going to give you our explanation of what that is. So masters, there are dimensions and there are realms. A dimension is an energy space for thought to be experienced in an energy frequency potential. Basically, it's an energy attached to thought in a dimension. And each dimension has a different capacity for thought to be experienced because each dimension has a different frequency to it. A realm is a dimension that has become governed, or a portion of a dimension where you can physically, in some form, play out your thoughts, commonly governed by fear. That's why things become so limited for you, depending on the dimensional capacity of your Earth suit, or what we would call Terra suit for the Earthship, as you are originally Terrans, not humans, but Terrans. And this is commonly humanoids are aware of the third dimensional embodiment that they carry, though we support that the Earthship can provide a physical type of experience in up to 11 dimensions and 11 realms here. In between the dimensions is an astral plane, Master, that feeds that dimension the thought. The astral plane does not have a timeline in it. You can grab all possible thoughts from an astral plane. Unfortunately, normally it threads through the dimension and becomes a processed way of walking out that reality for you, which means that thought then is demonstrated through limitation. Are you following us on that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In an astral plane, there is commonly one quantum ribbon of energy that runs through the astral plane that feeds the energy of the thought in the energy plane. But right now there are three of those ribbons. That means that you have energy ramped up around you in the dimension, in the realm, and in the capacity, potential for you to receive this energy. This is overwhelming because it's basically 3 times the energy that you're used to. For those who are eager to open their minds to the potential of this thought, their bodies have to go through a calibration to even process this high frequency. And for others who have no freaking idea what that is, they can't even process one. They're so discombobulated. They're in like a ninja machine, you know, the blender machine, you know, they're just like, what?
Oh, yeah, right.
Right. So that's the wave that's going on. It is not the resolve for consciousness in and by itself. It has the energy amplification behind a thought for anyone working on a conscious journey to feel an acceleration in their progress. But if you are not in that state, it's pretty stressful for a lot of people. If everybody can remember, if everybody could imagine that they're God and that this is them, actually, it's not separate from them. You are all of the energy that exists. And all you got to do is get your own self recalibrated to your own self. That seems more acceptable, doesn't it? It doesn't seem foreign.
Right.
It just seems like I've just got to interface with a higher version of my own self. And then I can utilize that to, in this life, experience acceleration like you probably haven't experienced in your human reincarnated lives back on this earth ship thus far. That's what our description is of this potential energy, but it is also the description of why it seems like such a monkey to a lot of people as well. But we will help you manage your way through it.
That explains it very well with this 3 threads of expansion occurring, and so we will get confused by it. That's what happens, and we will have knee-jerk responses and reactions. And so, what I heard you say was to get more back in touch with the soul of yourself. But how do people do that? How do they get back to that? I call it the center of ourselves, the locus, that seat of power within. Our body is part of this ascension process. I think a lot of people forget that. They want to leave their bodies. The body is the temple to do this ascension process. So maybe you could speak to that a little bit more, how to get yourself back in that space to navigate when these changes are occurring.
Thank you, Master, for asking that question.
Absolutely.
The very first thing that we will point out is we support that it is absolutely vital for human beings to ground themselves at least 3 times a day.
Okay.
With everything that you are exposed to that is designed to unground you and detach your soul energetically, you've got to intentionally ground that soul into the body. So what happens, we support, is that your soul can slip out of its seat. Okay, people who get very confused, they can't seem to manage their lives. They can't seem to take a thought and make it useful. People with Alzheimer's, people with dementia, people with emotional problems, people with depression and extreme stress and anxiety. Your soul is slipped out of its seat, and the grounding puts it right back into the driver's seat. So 3 times a day to go through grounding processes for yourself. When you come in the morning, of course, because you've been traveling in the astral planes at night, need to get seated. Sometime in the middle of your day, and also at night before you travel again. That's the first thing.
Okay.
Just that,
Will
after
change.
about 3 weeks, after
change.
about 3 weeks, you're going to start feeling clearer. You're going to be able to have clearer thought capacity. Okay. From there, you go into dedicating a type of time in your day for your inward practice. You have committed to so much time that screws you up. All we got to ask of you is just a little bit of time.
And that means set your device
Yes.
away.
Yeah.
Okay. Take it out of the room. Take all of the computer devices that are involved in today's day and age for survival. Take all them devices, designate one area, even if it's outside.
Yeah.
That's sacred space that you can spend a short period of time in. Because believe me, we understand how time is so valuable in the human experience, but you have got to get away.
You create a sacred space for yourself, as Brad is explaining. It is a space with no distraction. It is a space that supports you energetically. We support that it has something to do infused with the elements. Water, wood, metal, some type of grounding. Brad has greenhouses here on the property that he goes into for his space. And go in without an agenda and without a requirement. Because the minute you start thinking it's supposed to feel a certain way, you just screwed yourself.
You've limited.
You have. It's just calm. And we instruct our students to first imagine it's like waves from the ocean. Just let it come in. Just let it come in. You're just standing there and just let the wave hit you. And that's it. Just that enough. Just that will be enough to start to get your life calmed down. Now you can go farther and deeper. We love the practitioners out there bringing forth this magical work of activations and nurturing, and you're going to be able to decipher the ones that work for you. You're going to be able to create the ones that work for you for your own self, and that's where it starts. And you can't ever let go of that, because this earth ship is going to get faster and faster and faster, and you've got to dedicate the love of self to yourselves, Master, for you to navigate this realm that you've chosen to be here. We would tell you that it's as valuable as eating. It's as valuable as breathing. It's as valuable as sleeping. Yeah. These are the 3 basic needs of the physical body. And we say there's 4 basic needs for the physical body. Make this your spiritual practice, that 4th component that holds the braid together. You can have a braid weave itself together and it can very quickly unravel, and it almost pops open when it unravels. Spirituality is that last 4th wrap that holds that braid together. So even if it loosens itself, it's still supported with the energy of knowing. That's what your spiritual practice is for you.
Oh, very well said. And I can't help but get the image of the double helix. And I'm wondering too, Brad, with your brain, all the changes you had, if you've actually activated more of your DNA. And I can't help but think that's what Julius is talking about here.
That's a whole nother.
I know. And we don't have time for that, you guys. Unfortunately, we don't, because our time is coming to an end here. But I'm going to be listening several times myself. I hope everybody out there does too, because I think you're going to hear something else in it. I know when I get channeled messages that I share with you guys here on the channel, we listen to it over again because we hear it on another level. And so I'm starting to hear the DNA activation and what was just said, not just how to do this literally for yourself physically in your body, but also what's happening internally on whole nother level. So thank you for sharing that, Julius. We have come to the end. And so I'm going to ask any one of you, there's 3 beings here, you guys. Any one of you, anything else you would like to share with our audience that has to do with their own personal empowerment?
So, Master, you can visit our website, which is expandwithjulius.com, and you will receive one of our full teachings on your empowerment, explains everything. We would love to gift that to you.
Yeah, that's a full class.
That's
not
fantastic.
Partial. It's a full class.
We want everyone to absorb as much information as you can from everywhere. Programming like this is essential. You have called upon this beautiful master and soul to facilitate the capacity of knowing of oneself. Fill yourselves up with it, please. If we are in there as well, we are honored to do so. But whatever aligns with you goes with our blessings. When you know yourselves as source, you know all others as source as well, and honor and compassion become the norm. We're going to bring you back up to that space, and masters, we can heal the pain and the suffering and the limitation of this realm and all other realms of your choosing. Just know that the power is within you, and though it sometimes takes energy as ours to coach you, remind you, assist you, and love you back to that knowing, it is a steadfast truth. Masters, it is our honor to be here with you now and always, and until the next time, as it will be.
Thank you, Julius. Well, so Kasey and Brad, final words from you that you'd like to add? And I just want to say, that was fantastic. Enjoyed having Julius here. Enjoyed having both of you guys here. Great guests. I knew that you guys out there would enjoy seeing them too. If you haven't already seen them or know about them, I've known about them for a few years, and I was just thrilled to finally, have this opportunity with them. But what would you guys like to say as a final word?
You can do it, right?
Yeah.
We're just normal people, really. We're just normal people. I think that sometimes we think that certain people are blessed with more capacity than others, and I don't think that's true. I think we all do.
We've just forgotten.
We just do our thing, and all of you do your thing. All of you do it in some way. None of you are insignificant. That's it. It's not possible. It's just not possible. Get your superpowers out. Just get them out in some way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's pretty fun when it happens, and if he can do it, anybody can do it.
Yeah.
It's true. Everybody can do this, you guys. We all have these abilities.
If I can do it, anybody can do it. We are learning with you.
Yes.
And we love everybody. So we appreciate all your time. Thanks.
Thank you. So tell us your website one more time.
expandwithjulius.com.
Yeah.
Links will be below, and also to the gift they offered you guys. Well, I want to thank you both, all three of you, for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure having you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very welcome. So there you have it, you guys. There's two people that are extraordinary in some regards, no different than you yourself, but they have these events that took them into extraordinary places. Listen, I think it was great advice that Julius gave us, is to find that center within ourselves, that place where we can be calm and reflective, introspective, and just be in that space with no agenda. And I think you're going to find that your soul's going to start finding its center course through this time that can always be chaotic. So with that said, go within, ground yourself today, and get out there and explore this beautiful universe within. And until next time, this was Karen Dahlman with Creative Visions TV. I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.